The bell rang sharply through the halls of Westbridge High, and the sound echoed off the polished floors as students rushed into their classrooms. Backpacks slammed into lockers, laughter bounced through the corridors, and shoes squeaked against the tiles. For most of the students, it was just another ordinary morning. But for Mia, it felt like stepping onto another planet. She stood outside classroom 214 for a moment, gripping the strap of her worn backpack. The hallway buzzed with confident voices and expensive sneakers tapping across the floor. She glanced down at her simple shoes and took a slow breath before pushing the door open. Inside, the classroom was already half full. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, falling across neat rows of desks. Students were chatting in small groups, some scrolling through their phones, others laughing loudly. The conversation softened when Mia walked in. A few students looked up. Their eyes scanned her from head to toe, her faded jeans, her gray hoodie, the slightly frayed edges of her backpack. Someone whispered. Another student leaned toward his friend and murmured something that made them both smirk. Mia tried not to notice. She kept her head down and walked quietly toward the back of the room. The only empty seat was near the window in the last row. Perfect, she thought. If she stayed there, maybe no one would pay attention to her. She slid into the chair and placed her backpack carefully under the desk. Outside the window, a large oak tree swayed gently in the morning breeze. Watching its leaves helped calm her racing thoughts. You can do this, she told herself. It's just a school. Across the room, a group of students sat around the center desks. Their clothes looked brand new, their watches shiny under the sunlight. One of them, a tall boy with styled hair and a confident grin, noticed Mia sitting alone. He leaned back in his chair. New girl, he muttered quietly. The others turned to look. She doesn't look like she belongs here, another student said under his breath. A girl with perfectly straight hair tilted her head slightly. Scholarship kid, probably. They chuckled softly. The tall boy picked up a small piece of paper from his notebook. He scribbled something quickly while glancing over at Mia. Then he folded the paper neatly. Let's see how long she lasts, he said with a quiet grin. One of the boys beside him snorted. The note traveled from one desk to another, sliding across surfaces like a quiet secret. Each student who passed it smirked a little wider. Finally, it reached the edge of Mia's desk. The folded paper rested beside her notebook. Mia blinked in surprise. She looked around, but everyone quickly looked away, pretending to be busy. A few students leaned forward with interest. Her fingers hesitated before she picked up the paper. Maybe it's directions, she thought. Or a welcome note. Slowly, she unfolded it. The words were written in bold, careless handwriting. Your dad can't afford this school. Go back where you came from. For a moment, the sounds of the classroom seemed to fade. Mia stared at the sentence as if it might change if she looked long enough. Her chest tightened. She swallowed hard and folded the paper again, her hands trembling slightly. She kept her eyes on the desk, hoping no one would see the sudden shine in them. Across the room, a few students watched her reaction closely. The tall boy leaned back in his chair again, satisfied. Got her, he whispered. Just then, the classroom door opened. Mr. Carter walked in carrying a stack of folders under one arm. He was in his early 40s, tall, with slightly graying hair and the calm, observant eyes of someone who noticed more than people realized. The room quieted quickly. Good morning, everyone, he said, setting the folders down on the desk. Morning, the class replied half-heartedly. Mr. Carter glanced around the room, taking attendance in his head the way he always did. His gaze paused briefly when he noticed Mia sitting alone in the back. A new student. He made a mental note to introduce himself later. All right, he said, clapping his hands lightly. Before we begin, I'm going to collect your homework from yesterday. A few students groaned quietly. Mr. Carter picked up a clipboard and began walking between the rows of desks. Papers were passed forward as he moved down each aisle. Mia sat very still, staring at the folded note in her hands. Maybe I should just throw it away, she thought. But her fingers wouldn't move. The words kept echoing in her mind. Your dad can't afford this school. She lowered her head slightly, hoping no one would notice the moisture gathering in her eyes. Footsteps stopped beside her desk. Mia quickly tried to hide the paper under her notebook. But it was too late. Mr. Carter had already noticed. He tilted his head slightly. Is everything all right? Mia forced a small nod. Yes, sir. Her voice was quiet, almost too quiet. Mr. Carter studied her for a moment. Years of teaching had made him good at recognizing when something wasn't right. His eyes shifted to the edge of the paper peeking out from under the notebook. May I see that? He asked gently. Mia hesitated. It's nothing, she said quickly. But Mr. Carter had already picked up the folded note. He unfolded it. As his eyes scanned the sentence, the calm expression on his face slowly disappeared. The classroom grew silent. Students pretended to focus on their desks, but nearly every pair of eyes was secretly watching. Mr. Carter read the message again. Then he looked up. His gaze swept slowly across the room. A few students shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The tall boy avoided eye contact. Without saying a single word, Mr. Carter carefully folded the paper again. Then he tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper cut through the silence. He tore the pieces again. And again. Small scraps of the note fell into the trash bin beside the desk. Mr. Carter straightened and looked directly at the class. His voice, when he spoke, was calm but firm. In this classroom, he said slowly, we judge people by their character, not by their parents' money. No one spoke. The earlier smirks had vanished. A few students stared down at their desks. Mr. Carter's eyes lingered on the group in the center of the room for a moment longer before he continued walking down the aisle, collecting homework as if nothing had happened. But the atmosphere in the classroom had completely changed. And for the first time since she walked in, Mia felt like she wasn't completely alone.